All right, welcome everyone. It's Sunday, March 13th, 2022, and this is the Morgellons Call of the Week. I'm Robin from Western Mass, the co-host of the meeting, and I'm thrilled to be here with you guys. It's a sunny day in Massachusetts and probably most of the East Coast after that major storm. So I have been working Richard's protocols and the diet in his book for a few years. It helped me get my life back, and there have been a couple of times where I've gotten reinfested, and it has helped me, recover from that as well. So I'm really grateful for Richard. I feel like he is the best authority on Morgellons and other skin parasites. He's been in the trenches with us, and his book just came out with the 11th edition because he never stops learning. He never stops researching. He's always looking for new information, and he's here for us every week. You can text him up to 3 times a day with questions. You can come on this call and talk to him live. So, he's done a lot I have no clue how many people he has helped, but it's multitudes. And so at this point, I'd like to introduce Richard Kuhns and welcome him. Richard, are you unmuted?
Thank you, Robin. Thank you for that wonderful introduction. It's wonderful to be here. I'm glad to be here and be available for everybody to get their lives back. It is not an easy path. As many of you already know, you've gone to doctor after doctor after doctor, and you're lucky to find someone that even acknowledges the word Morgellons. And then what would they do? There's no treatment for Morgellons. Yes, there are a few doctors in the country that are listed in my book in Chapter 6 who do treat Morgellons as Lyme disease utilizing antibiotics, which, I went through that route. It helped. I was fine as long as I was on them. And after I quit them about 6 months later, then the Lyme disease just about destroyed my life. And, it was kind of discouraged. Anyway, we're going to get technical in this part. So I better go through the FDA disclosure so we're on board with our government. And the FDA and AMA require me to inform each and every one of you that we are not medical doctors. So before you start the King Diet or accept any of our recommendations, that you discuss them thoroughly with your doctor to make sure they do not interfere with any health problems you're presently experiencing. We are here to educate. That's it. The FDA has not evaluated any of our statements. They don't have time to do that, and we don't have millions of dollars to put them forth to the FDA to be evaluated. But it means that because we do not have medical backgrounds, we cannot diagnose, cure, treat, or mitigate any disease. We're limited to education, and we do a hell of a good job about that, don't we, Robin?
Absolutely.
Amen.
Absolutely.
So
yeah.
We can educate you how to use the King Diet to your advantage. We can educate you how to clean the organisms out of your skin. We can educate you how to clean them out of your environment. And we can educate you how to, through the use of targeted supplements, build health and immune functioning. And amen. The end result is life is wonderful. Life is wonderful again. You're not awakened at 3 a.m. I used to be when I was in the throes of it back in the 90s, having to take a quick dramatic trip to fill up the tub with hot water, or near scalding then, because we knew nothing about nature's gift. And I used hot scalding water and Epsom salts or whatever I had to put in the water, and sit in there for 45 minutes or so to at least quiet them down so I could get a few more hours of sleep. That's what life used to be for me, and I'm sure it is that way for many of you. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here. You know, people keep coming up and saying, oh, well, I got the cure for Morgellons. You know, I did this. I mean, the internet is full of this. There are many, many Facebook groups, and you can see things say, oh, I did this and my Morgellons went away. Well, you know, Morgellons is not the same thing for everyone. And it's kind of silly to see somebody say that and they got basically cured and then expect that you, by doing the same thing, are going to get cured, when the degree to which you're experiencing Morgellons and other complications that may come along with Morgellons, such as mites and Springtails and who knows what other kinds of infections, of which there are many that seem to take advantage of this opportunity. You know, each of us are not the same. The subject for the day comes from a question I received during the week, and that's where I'm picking most of the topics now. I have been going back through the book, and the lady asked, what is the recommendation or dose for baking soda and DE to drink with water? Well, that is a wonderful, why do baking soda? What is the purpose of baking soda? You want to answer that, Robin? What's the purpose of baking soda?
Well, the common thought is that it helps alkalize your body.
Absolutely. That's the goal, to alkalize your body. And, you know, when I say about things that, you know, my first introduction came to baking soda, using baking soda, came about, I don't know, 10 years ago. I was reading or looking at a YouTube post, and this guy says, oh, I started using baking soda, and it cured me of Morgellons. You know, 1 teaspoon a day, a glass of water on an empty stomach, I think it was 2 times a day, cured me of Morgellons. And I thought, well, that's rather interesting. You know, the idea here is to alkalize your system, all right? Now, on many, many of these YouTube videos, we have mentioned the antidote to Morgellons. Say you only have Morgellons. There's no complicating factors, as I alluded to just a little bit earlier, but just pure case of Morgellons. The antidote is boron and apple cider vinegar to consume. That's the antidote. The apple cider vinegar to alkalize your system. The boron is said to be the antidote. I don't know, but you know, it's basically that simple. And Morgellons really doesn't have to be complicated. It by itself isn't complicated, all right? Now, I just want to say one thing here. Everybody talks about Morgellons. Wow. Like Morgellons is the thing. You cure Morgellons and you got the universe solved when it comes to us. They don't even, you know, if you want to know how much somebody knows about skin parasites and they claim to be a Morgellons expert, ask them what they know about Springtails or Columbella or the various infestations of mites. Oh, they'll say they don't exist. They don't bother people. You know, the worst mite you can get is scabies. If you go out in the summertime and you walk through a swarm of no-see-ums, you're going to come home and itch a little bit. You're going to take a shower and wash them off, and that's it. You know, that's what they claim. Well, I tell you how much they know about skin parasites. Nothing. Because things like Columbella, Springtails, could be even as devastating, if not more devastating, and certainly more of a complicating issue than just Morgellons by itself. And thank goodness I created this questionnaire, I don't know, 15, 20 years ago. It's basically the same questionnaire ever since. And the questionnaire gives me an idea as to whether or not you're dealing with one or the other or both. And guess what? It seems that it's gone from maybe 10 years ago when 50% of us were dealing with Morgellons and the other 50% maybe with Springtails. It now seems to be about 90% of us are dealing with both Morgellons and Springtails. And there is a difference between them. And we need to know what we're dealing with and how to deal with them and how to disinfect effectively, okay? So, back to alkalizing our body. So if we're only dealing with simple Morgellons, it's a simple trick. Apple cider vinegar and boron, about 30 milligrams per day. We have boron in the store. They come in little 3 milligram tablets. So that means you go up to 6 or 8 a day, maybe 9 a day as time goes on. Now, the problem being, okay, apple cider vinegar is to alkalize the system. Problem being is that in the early stages of you're dealing with Springtails as an infestation. Now, how do you know? Well, Morgellons is characterized by filaments and fibers growing from your skin, usually from points of lesion activity, where you have lesions that they grow. They're different colors, different sizes, blue, red, white, black, and some of them are literally microscopic. You need a 60-power scope to actually see them. So most of us don't walk around with a 60-power scope. So what you might do is notice that in your clothing and in your bedding, you have cotton-like or lint-like substances without any reasonable explanation. In other words, you're not wearing, what would it be, like a cashmere sweater would do something like that, or wool might do something like that, show up as lint or like cotton-like substance. Barring wearing type of clothing or bedding that would produce a cotton-like or lint-like substance. So without any reasonable explanation, you see these things. That's a good indication that these little tiny filaments, they do shed from you. They will accumulate, and you'll see them. Some people also see these little tiny black specks. Little tiny black specks could be either dead mites, or if you put them under a microscope with, few 10 power, 30 power, or whatever, you'll see that they're tiny compressed filaments and not a solid substance like you would expect to see in a dead organism like a mite. So that would indicate that you have and are dealing with Morgellons according to, this is educational, this is not diagnostic, according to what is written in Dr. Saverly's book, Morgellons, the legitimization of a disease, okay? So I'm educating you as to what is typically recognized as Morgellons per the medical expert, Dr. Saverly, who has, fortunately for us, written a book that is there to educate the medical community about the existence of this tremendous disease, which the CDC says doesn't really exist except in the mind. And the people going to the doctor with the lesions and whatever, doing it to themselves from scratching and irritating their skin and causing their own infection in the middle of the back where they can't even reach. That's how absurd this is, okay? Now, when we're looking at Springtails, Springtails have nothing to do with filaments. Nothing, okay? They are tiny little organisms, about 300 microns in length, maybe probably a big one. That's the size of a dust particle, and they live generally outdoors in the ground and are responsible. There's about 6,000 species of them according to the encyclopedias, and without them, we could not live as a civilization or even as human beings, because their job is to degrade the organic matter such as leaves from trees and excrement from dogs and poop and animals and things like that. That's their job. They're the cleaner-uppers. But there seems to be about 19 species that have developed an affinity for human flesh. The resource of that is reported in my book. And there are only 2 studies ever done. One back in around 1959 was a Swedish study that did find them in humans, infecting humans, and the cure was recognized then that what you have to use is lime sulfur, and we do have lime sulfur in our online store. We found other things along the way that work pretty well in helping disinfect them as well. But the second study was, I think, 2006 by the National Pedullosis Society, and they found that out of 22 people who were diagnosed with delusions of parasites, as all of us have been. I mean, if there's anybody on this call that hasn't been diagnosed as having delusions of parasites, you are weird, all right? I've gotten that diagnosis, okay? And then you get labeled with it, and it goes from doctor to doctor. Every time you go, you provide your Social Security number, you are in a database, and boom, you got delusions of parasitosis. The little red flag goes off in the doctor's mind, this guy's a wacko, all right? Okay. So anyway, 2006 was, I think, the date, and they found that it was either 18 out of 20 or 20 out of 22 people who were diagnosed as delusions of parasites. They found springtails in the microscopic examinations of the skin. And they acknowledged that it took an experienced microbiologist to find these organisms. They are not easy to see. Remember, they're only 300 microns. They look like a dust particle, and unless they're moving, they're hard to tell from anything else. They don't have any visible mouth parts even. And many people have gone to the extent, experts, that say Columbella, springtails, snow fleas, they're all the same, except different species, cannot consume human flesh because they have no mouth parts. They can't bite you, in other words. And again, not everybody apparently is privy to the same information. Robin has many times said that each of you are my research team, and you send me information from time to time. And one person sent me some information about Columbian having retractable mouth parts. In other words, unless you catch them feeding, you can't see the mouth part. It retracts, which clears up a lot of confusion. These experts obviously haven't seen these organisms consuming food, otherwise they would have acknowledged and noticed they have mouth parts. Well, anyway, I'm wrapping up this because 90% of us are dealing with both Morgellons and springtails at the same time. Springtails are usually, they're called springtails because they are rod-shaped organisms. They exist in nature like basically straight, but when they want to move, they spring. It's like your hand. I'm on video right now. I'm showing how my hand would flex to spring. And when they spring, it springs them up so they can go into the air currents, and they may spring as high as perhaps 18 inches, probably the tops of their jump. So it's like a jump. And they spring indiscriminately. They do not have the ability to spring. I guess they spring when they feel threatened or something like that, or whatever. I don't know. Or when they think there's a food source around, or when they sense a food source, they spring. And so they can spring up onto your ankles and your lower legs. And the question is, do you often feel things that are itching and biting around your ankles or lower legs? very much like fleas would. If you've ever had an infestation of fleas, I remember 30 years ago, they were in my yard outside, and I'd walk in and I'd feel these things all over my ankles and lower legs, and there would be the little black specks of the fleas. Well, it feels like fleas, but they're invisible. You cannot see them. So that's the first thing that we look to identify what might be associated with springtails. The second thing is that if they're not dealt with early, they move all the way up through your body, and for some reason they have an affinity for the eyelashes. You'll get a crusty feeling on the eyelashes. Now, if you're talking to some people experienced in Morgellons, they will tell you that's Morgellons. But remember, they say springtails don't exist. All right? So they can't know the reality then that that person has both and is dealing with both springtails and Morgellons. The reason I know is that I was lucky enough to not have to deal with both of them at the same time. I dealt with Morgellons and springtails first. I had Morgellons later. So I know that the springtails are the eyelashes. And you'll get them on the back of your scalp. And to the lower part of your scalp and the back of your neck and onto the shoulders. I love that area, and they attack it, and you get these non-healing lesions. But that could also be Morgellons. So we look at springtails as ankle, lower leg activity, and crusty eyelids. Now, the difference is that if we want to alkalize the system, see, okay, I'm coming back round circle, 360 degrees, back to the original reason of this talk. Alkalizing the system. Apple cider vinegar and boron for Morgellons, all right? Apple cider vinegar for Columbella, no go. It feeds, apple cider vinegar feeds Columbella, feeds springtails. So we need to find an alternate way of alkalizing the system. And that would be baking soda, would be an inexpensive. So anybody dealing with Morgellons, the important thing, number one step, inexpensive, cheap, something you can do. And I think, sometimes people believe that unless it costs money, it's of no value. So they don't even think or there's any value or why should I do this? Well, 1 teaspoon a day. In fact, if you go on the internet, some places you'll see you only need 1/4 of a teaspoon twice a day, empty stomach with a glass of water. And if you look at last week's video when we talk about diatomaceous earth, that's another inexpensive, underused technique, weapon that is often overlooked because it's cheap. And I don't know, it must be that to get well, you have to spend a lot of money. No, not really. 2 apples, baking soda, and diatomaceous earth. Do them at the same time. 8 ounces of water, stir it up, put it in your coffee if you're drinking coffee between meals or whatever. And that is to contribute to alkalizing the system. Now, another thing you find, alkalizing water. Have you seen a lot of that, Robin, the big deal about drinking water that's alkalized?
Yeah, I mean...
Everywhere. I don't know how much they charge. They can't charge less than about, $1.50 a bottle for 8 ounces or whatever. How silly is that? Okay. To get well, we want to build our nutritional stores, targeted supplements. The targeted supplements, the number 1 and number 2 is the vitamins that we have. So, okay, now we'll spend a little money, the vitamins and minerals, all right? Now, I recommend the coral calcium minerals. Now, what is that? Well, the coral calcium comes in a little sachet, and you just drop that sachet in your water supply every day, one sachet in. I use a Lexan container. Hard plastic is required. Do not use a polypropylene or milk, an empty milk or water container that's been rinsed out. It'll eat right through it. All right, so you want a good quality Lexan or glass container, and you put in the sachet. Now, you get all the minerals that you need in ionic form, so your body has to do nothing to break them down or utilize them. But more valuable, you get a pH of about 9.5. A constant supply of alkalized water throughout the day. And so when you add up the money, it's less expensive to go with coral calcium, drinking that water daily, than drinking 2 or 3 bottles of alkalized water in the store daily. Okay? So those two things, the minerals and the vitamins, that's the first part of our Pack of Life package that we recommend. So you got 3 ways. You got the baking soda. Of course, baking soda has sodium in it, so you want to watch your blood pressure, because you don't want to be taking a lot of baking soda and raising your blood pressure, particularly if you're prone to have blood pressure issues. And alkalizing your water with our ionic minerals are 2 fantastic ways of alkalizing your system. Now let's look at one more thing. This whole thing about alkalizing your system, if you go into the Google and research something like alkalizing your body myth, well, the whole thing is a myth. They talk about the fact that you can raise the pH of your system no. Your body is at a very precise pH. In fact, there are certain areas of your body that are actually acidic if you look at the technology of the body and how it works. So the idea about alkalizing and making your pH more alkaline is really, it's kind of a gimmick almost. But what have I been talking about? I've been talking very seriously about. Well, it is still very serious. Because if you're not doing what you can to raise the alkalinity of your body has to do more work to defend itself from organisms. So the idea is in an alkaline environment, nothing can exist. No parasites can exist, and no diseases can exist. And, well, there's even one post that are on the internet that talks about leukemia does exist in an alkaline environment. So it is not true that nothing can exist in an alkaline environment. Some actually do. But the idea is to diminish the amount of work that your body has to do to reserve itself to immune functioning. So there are other ways of boosting what we call alkalinity, which, you know, is really a misnomer, I think, in this argument. You were going to say something, Robin?
Yeah, I was going to say one of the number one ways of that is suggested to improve the alkalizing in your body is just drink lots of water to flush out toxins. Water and
absolutely. I think that's the first thing that most people do not do is they do not drink enough water because they're afraid of having to pee when they don't when they might not be able to get to a bathroom to pee. I don't know. So, because when you do drink a lot of water, you're going to be peeing a lot, and you need 6 to 8 glasses, 8-ounce glasses a day of water. And yes, if you can drink the alkalized water, like with the coral calcium that we have, that's even better. But there's one more step that we can take, and that is the foods that we eat also contribute to alkalinity or acidity. It seems that most, I'm just going to read a few things here, and in the latest email that went out today at 3 p.m., If you go back to that email, there's a link that will take you to this page, and it will give you a list of alkaline foods, acidic foods. Now, generally, many of the things that are protein in nature do contribute to acidity. Bacon, beans, beef, black pepper, wheat bran, butter, ketchup, cheese, barley, chocolate, chicken, cocoa, coffee, codfish, corn, cornstarch, corn oil, corn syrup, coconut, corned beef, crackers, soda crackers, that is, cranberries, currants, eggs, fish. Many of these things are on the diet. White flour, wheat flour, so ice creams, lamb, legumes, milk, cow's milk, macaroni, meat, mustard, nuts, oatmeal, olive oil, olives, organ meats, oysters, peanut butter. Of course, peanut butter is definitely a bad news actor for us. Pasta. It goes on. White rice, brown rice, refined sugar, processed cereal, plums, fish, poultry. Many of these things, distilled vinegar, veal, turkey, black tea, sunflower seeds, soft drinks, spaghetti, shrimp. I mentioned that before. Yogurt, most wheat products, walnuts. All right, there are many things on here that are on the King diet that actually do contribute to acidity. But over here on the other side, the foods that actually contribute to alkalinity could be apples. So we have our Granny Smith apples, apple cider vinegar. What's that?
Lemons and bananas.
Yes, bananas are here, avocados are here, apricots, beets. Unfortunately, many of these things are not on stage 1 of the King diet. Brussels sprouts, Brazil nuts, cabbage, cantaloupe. So you want to go through here, and obviously when you're eating, the King diet, as I've often said, can be the most unhealthy diet in the world if you depend on eating hamburger and hamburger only, okay? If that's the kind of diet you have, you go to Burger King or McDonald's and just order the hamburger without the bun or any of the sauce or whatever. That can be very unhealthy. On the other hand, leafy green vegetables, radishes are here. Peppers are here. Parsley, onions, okra. All these things. These other things are contribute to alkalinity. Even lime juice and lemon juice, as Robin mentioned earlier. So when you're eating and you're looking at your food, if you're looking at moving towards alkalinity, go back and get this update at 3 p.m. It wasn't on the earlier ones that went out early this morning or later on. And open up. You'll have a complete list of all the foods, which ones contribute to acidity, which ones contribute to alkalinity, so you can use that as a guide in moving you more towards an alkaline diet. Okay, Mary, have you used the baking soda? Anything to alkalize?
I used it and then I stopped, and I was really listening to what you were saying because I don't think that I understood that before now. I thought that the DE and the baking soda were so you could poop.
Oh.
I didn't understand that it had anything to do with the alcohol.
No, they are used as a cleanse, but just the baking soda alone is to alkalize your body.
Yeah. Yeah, DE is good to help cleanse your system as well because it's going to get rid of all those intestinal parasites, and that could be a good cleanse as well. Okay, well, I guess that wraps up this portion.